Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for your time and attention. This has been a long trial, and it's been a little bit disjointed. I acknowledge that. It couldn't be helped, I'm afraid. Now, this is going to be the part of this trial where I go over everything I've presented and give you all those little puzzle pieces again that I talked about in my opening and help you put them together. So I want to start by talking about our burden of proof. This is my standard. A reasonable doubt is a fair and honest doubt, growing out of the evidence or lack of evidence. It is not merely an imaginary possible doubt, but a doubt based on reason and common sense. It's also not beyond any doubt or beyond all doubt. And we don't have to conclusively disprove any alternative theory because that would be impossible. It's always possible you can have 99.999% of a picture set, and that there's always, that little tiny 0.0001% chance that could come and screw it up. But that's not a reasonable doubt, right? It makes me think sometimes of when we put in DNA evidence. The lab techs always say it's something like a 1 in 100 billion chance the DNA on the murder weapon comes from someone other than the defendant, right? They don't say, yeah, it's the defendant's blood. They just say it's almost impossible for it not to be, okay? That's kind of what we're talking about here. It's possible, but it's not reasonable. In a case like this, I think the greatest assault you can make on the case we put on and the reasonable doubt here would be one of distraction. It's one that would get everyone on the jury, all of you, to miss the forest for a single tree. A pine forest is still a pine forest, even if there's another tree in it. I want to talk a little bit about the inferences. They are not only allowed, they are required. This is something that we do every day, and it's something that jurors have to do as well, because very, very rarely does a defendant stand in front of people and tell them exactly why they committed the crime and what their intent was when they did it. And if they do, those cases even more rarely go to trial. An example I like to give is if you come downstairs in the middle of the night and you see your kid with his hand in the cookie jar. You know exactly what he's doing, right? He's getting a cookie. It's possible he could be doing something else with it, but it's not reasonable. He put his hand in the cookie jar because he's getting a cookie. There's no other rationale for it. Now, before we really dive into everything and I go over some of the evidence again with you, I want to remind you that two of the elements I do have to prove are the date and the venue. So the date in this case, of course, on or about October 1st, 2021, and the venue is Oakland County. I don't really think that's been disputed in this case, but I need to say it anyway. When I started, I told you that trials are a quest to determine what happened and if what happened broke the law, and it's your decision on those two things. That's your job. Everything else is for somebody else. So let's go over that now. Let's apply the facts to the elements. What happened? Here's the basics, I think, about what happened actually on October 1st, 2021, and what I think the evidence shows. It's Megan's birthday party. Life has not been easy necessarily at the Imirowicz household, and today is going to be a good day because it's her birthday party. So she gets up, she goes to get her dad to drive her to her hair appointment, and Dad, Conrad, is drunk, probably again, right? This is not going to be the first time, and that's really not okay. Not today, not on this day, and she loses control. She starts throwing things at him. It's not helping her feel better. She's furious, out of control, and she goes way, way too far. And that's something that can happen to all of us. When we lose our temper, we can go too far. And so she grabs the lye, pours it on him, and pours water on him. A couple of hours later, Kayla finds him burned when Megan sends her over there to get the credit card number. She calls 911. Conrad's taken to the hospital, and after months of treatment and pain, he eventually dies from the burns and the complications thereof. That's the basics. So how do we know? Did it break the law? We have to apply the evidence to the elements. These are the elements of the offense. Unlawful possession or use of chemical irritants causing death. The defendant placed, used, or released a substance. The substance that the defendant possessed, placed, used, or released was a chemical irritant, which is a solid, liquid, or gas that through its chemical properties, chemical or physical properties, alone or in combination with one or more other substances, can be used to produce an irritant effect in humans, animals, or plants. The defendant possessed, placed, used, or released the chemical irritant to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, assault, batter, or kill Conrad Imirowicz, and that the possession, placement, use, or release of the chemical irritant resulted in the death of Conrad Imirowicz. Let's take them each in turn. Facts and inferences applied to element 1. Placed, used, or released a substance. This case actually differs from some homicides where we actually do have some statements from the victim to people. In his opening, Mr. Miller said that in this trial you would not find in any exhibit testimony, or even in, I think he said like the 20,000 some pages of medical records, you would not find a single instance where Conrad said that Megan threw chemicals on him. That found out to be not true very quickly.
patient emergency. This is Oakland County with a transfer at 1650 Duck Creek Lane. Okay, thank you. Hi, caller, what's going on out there?
Hi, my name is David. I'm a nurse at Ascension Genesis in Grand Blanc, Michigan, calling to report a possible assault on my patient.
Okay.
My patient's name is Conrad, Konrad. Last is Imirowicz. He's a 64-year-old male patient with a date of birth of August 11th, 1957. Arrived via EMS with multiple chemical burns across his body. When he first arrived, he said that he thought maybe this was from a bug spray. Upon further investigation, the gentleman stated that his daughter had thrown some substance on him, possibly causing these burns.
Okay.
So David Backos' 911 call tells us what Conrad was saying, even then at Genesis Ascension, the first hospital he was there. Remember, he was in the room when he was talking to Lucas and to Austin. All right. Now, Lucas and Austin certainly know Conrad, and they have a ton of reasons to feel emotional about him and protective. But David doesn't, right? He's just a professional. Quite a professional, actually. I mean, I was actually quite surprised with the level and depth of his experience and how intelligently he was able to talk to you about what was happening. He has no stake in this game.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
And because he's a professional, he also recorded this in his notes, in the medical records. These were on Exhibit 14. It just so happens to match, again, what Lucas and Austin were saying, and what Lucas told you, and what Austin recorded in his written statement, that Megan threw hair dye and cleaning supplies on him. That's what I like to call independent third-party verification. But if there was any reason for anyone to be skeptical of what Lucas and Austin remembered and wrote down before, their testimony is corroborated 100% by someone with no stake in the game. Patient recently called that the patient's daughter had thrown something on patient. Oakland County was called about the alleged assault. Poison control called, and for poison control, pesticide bombs normally present with respiratory distress. Poison control recommended standard tox screen and standard burn protocol. Let's talk about facts and inferences applied element 2. The substance the defendant used, possessed, placed, or released was a chemical irritant, and what that means. Look, we know Lye did this to him. This was not a bug bomb. Even if you don't believe, let's set aside count 1, or element 1. Even if you don't believe Megan did this, or that she knew that it would do this, or the intent she had when it did this, it was the Lye that did this to him. And is Lye a chemical irritant? I don't really think we need to move past the bottle, right? Exhibit 9. Skull and crossbones on the front, big red label, causes severe burns. You can read more instructions. Precautions. Wear protective gloves, clothing, eye and face protection. Do not get in eyes, on skin, or on clothing. Danger. Causes severe burns and serious eye damage. It talks about do not mix with hot water. It talks about if you do get on your skin, wash immediately with cold water. This is a chemical irritant, no question. And it's only made worse when it's mixed with, other things like water. And I would say that even in this case, calling it an irritant, given what we saw happen to Conrad, is something of an understatement in the legal phrasing. But it is certainly an irritant. Facts and inferences applied to element 3. That the defendant placed, possessed, used, released the chemical irritant to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, assault, batter, or kill Conrad Imirowicz. So listen, this is a homicide case, right? And that word homicide comes with a great deal of pressure and weight upon your determination and what you think. You think the word murder, and then the brain can come alive with ideas of what that means. So I want to talk about intent and killing, and I want to do this by breaking down the video where Megan talks to the police. It's a little hard to hear because of the static and the technology. So I've chopped it up into little bits. We're going to go through most of the video that I showed you in smaller sections, in smaller portions, to keep it easier to track. And then we're going to, apply it to this element and, of course, some of the others while we do it. So this section is 2 minutes 45 seconds to 3 minutes in the video. Give it a second. One moment, Judge. You run this 9 times yesterday. It runs fine.
I started yelling at him and crying because obviously that's like a hard thing, you know.
Absolutely.
Stop drinking and it breaks my heart.
Absolutely, it's tough. I totally understand.
Let's try it this way.
I started yelling at him and crying because obviously that's like a hard thing, you know.
Absolutely.
Stop drinking and it breaks my heart.
Absolutely, it's tough. I totally understand.
And I just kind of got mad and I'm like, all I threw at him was a bag of bread. And
So this is very, very early on in the process, right? And the first thing she goes to right away is, all I threw at him was a bag of bread. They hadn't even asked her, you know, what she did, really. They hadn't told her, did you throw anything on him? They hadn't suggested a single thing to her. They had just asked her, you know, tell us what happened. And she goes right to, I was throwing things at him. And she goes right to, you know, minimizing her culpability.
and that's when she like told me like, I don't think he's okay, like something's wrong with him. And I was like trying to ask her what was happening, like what was going on. But I don't know. And then my brother texted me and was like, Megan, when Kayla's done calling an ambulance, tell her to call me back. So then I told her, and she called him.
So she's talking about Kayla now, and how Kayla came over and did this and called her. Now, remember what Kayla testified to, though. Kayla testified that when she called Megan and told her that he was burned, she kind of just scoffed and hung up the phone. And then she called Austin, and Austin told her to call 911. So what she told the police here is already a lie, right? Kayla has absolutely no reason to lie about this. Let's not forget that Kayla was one of Megan's friends. She was going to the party that night. She's the person she trusted to go back and get the credit card information to pay for the hotel room. Kayla didn't take the stand and lie to you. One of them did. One of them lied to people, right? It wasn't Kayla on the stand. It was Megan to the police. She's trying to make herself look better here. And that was, by the way, 3 minutes, 30 seconds to 3 minutes 52. We're going to move on to 3 minutes 54 seconds to 4 minutes 25 seconds.
Like, my mom called me and she was like, Megan, did you do this to your guy? And I was like, no, I didn't. I would never intentionally hurt my own father, and it kind of sucks that they all think I would. But I could never do that to him. I didn't. And like, there's a lot of stuff over in that area, so it could have been over there since our house is a mess. And
What could have been over there?
they said chemical burn, so I don't know. But my dad puts a lot of stuff over there. I don't clean it up because I shouldn't have to be the adult mom.
All right. So she's already saying I never intentionally would hurt him, right? But we already admitted to throwing things, but now it's I wouldn't intentionally hurt him. She's already protecting herself. She's already making an excuse. And I want you to remember that part where she says, there's lots of stuff over there. There could be lots of stuff over there. Because that's going to come back later.
I never clean how they're said. Maybe it's like I think like food. There's only ever food around there. I could never intentionally throw something dangerous out my own closet.
So now there's only ever food around there. There's no cleaning products for me to grab. That would be crazy. Why would there be cleaning products there? There's only ever food. That was 6 minutes 13 seconds to 6 minutes 23 seconds. So about 2 minutes later, she's already losing the thread.
Okay, is it possible that you threw some other things aside from blood?
I mean, it could be possible. I don't know.
7 minutes 13 seconds to 7 minutes 20 seconds. We're now at the point where, okay, it could be possible I threw something besides the thread. It could be possible there was other stuff there.
Do you remember throwing anything at him that cause like this white powder to drain on?
Not intentional. We're not saying you intentionally tried to. We're trying to figure out what she threw.
Just find it out.
I don't think so. I mean, there was like liquids, but there wasn't
What kind of liquid? That's the detail we need to know.
probably like water or something. Like I don't remember.
Like a water bottle or like a cup of water.
It was in the bottle, like bottle water. Yeah.
Okay. And then that's still on there?
So we went from bread, nothing but bread, to it could be other stuff, it could be possible, now it's liquids. And by the way, she was specific. It was a bottle. Right? It wasn't, I don't remember what kind of liquid it was or what it was in. It was a bottle. She knows. And that was 7 minutes, 38 seconds, 8 minutes, 11 seconds for the record.
Going on. So do you want to restart and tell us what happened? Okay, so what happened?
So I was throwing things. I was just grabbing anything that was on the floor, and then I just got like I got tired of it, and I walked away.
So she was just grabbing anything around. That was 8 minutes, 41 seconds, 8 minutes, 57 seconds.
Out of it. Okay. When you were throwing stuff, right? You're unintentionally throwing stuff. Not, I understand. I totally get it.
Like they're not adding, it's
Sure.
around.
Right, that's fine. When you threw anything, because we need to help the hospital out here. They're trying to figure out what's going on because, like I said, he's in rough shape, okay? Was there any white substance that flew out of something when you threw something at him or anything? We're trying to help your dad out here.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
9 minutes, 37 seconds to 10 minutes, 5 seconds. It took less than 10 minutes for her to admit that she threw things that involved white powder, which we know was a lie. Had to be. And I thought it was interesting because even when she's doing this, she's still trying to protect herself because she's talking to the police and she knows she might be in trouble. That's what she said at the very, saying at the beginning. I don't want to get in trouble. Because she's saying I wasn't throwing it at him, I was just throwing it, near him. When you're throwing something at someone, unless you're playing sports, you're doing it because you want them to hurt or to feel something of the pain you're feeling because you're angry. You want them to experience what you're feeling to some degree. Throwing it near them doesn't do anything. That's not true, right? No one throws something near someone when they're angry. Unless you're specifically trying not to hurt them for some reason, but that's not what happened here. It can't be, not with the level of injuries we have.
You said that was he wearing a shirt? Remember? Shirt or pants? No?
I know he wasn't wearing pants because he never did.
Okay.
10 minutes, 11 seconds, 10 minutes, 19 seconds. I know he wasn't wearing pants because he never wears pants. That would make sense given the injuries we saw. The legs were worse, right? That's what the doctors told us, and that's what's pretty evident.
Where on the body did you see that white stuff?
It mostly went on the couch, a little like on his like lower legs, but he was mostly covered with blanket.
So 10 minutes, 20 seconds, 10 minutes, 29 seconds. It mostly went on the couch, a little on his lower legs, talking about the white stuff. How would she know that if she didn't do it? Right? She knows where it went, and she's still trying to pick herself because she says there was a blanket in the way, which is absurd. Most of it didn't go on a blanket or on a couch. It was all over it. We saw. The back of that one leg that's in that photo was completely black, from heel up to the end of the leg. So most of it didn't get anywhere on the couch. And we saw the couch. There was a little bit on the couch, right? There was a little bit on the blanket. But look at his body.
You know what that stuff was?
It looked like something for the tub or something.
Okay. All right.
Do you know what that stuff was? It looked like something for the tub or something.
You ever use that stuff to clean the tub? So like drain the hole, like lie.
Like when I think it's for one of them. I think it's for one of them. It's like my dad uses it sometimes to like the product.
Do you ever use that stuff to clean the tub? I think my dad does. Like Drain-O-Lye, do you ever use that stuff? I think my dad does. I think he uses it for one of those things. I think he uses it to clog think she means declog, right? But she knows exactly what it is, okay? It's 10 minutes, 41 seconds, 10 minutes, 54 seconds.
You know what that stuff does to someone's like skin? You don't know? What do you think it is? It feels good if you have that Drano type of stuff on your skin.
Do you know what that stuff does? Do you know what it's like to have that skin? Do you think it would feel good to have on your skin? This thing is easier to hear via headphones. I don't know if you're going to be able to have it in the back. So there's really two options here. Either she says something very, very quietly, or she doesn't say anything about it at all. Which would be the only time that she doesn't answer a question, basically, in this whole interview. Right? That suggests to me that she knows that it's not going to feel good. Because, of course, it doesn't. She knows this is stuff you use to declog a drain and clean a bathtub. She knows that this isn't going to be something you want to put on somebody. And even if she doesn't, you know, the bottle will tell you.
When you threw it on, was he just motionless sitting there?
Yeah.
He didn't try to wipe anything off, so it kind of just soaked into his skin, right? And then you took off. Is that the extent of kind of what happened?
So he was motionless. That was 11 minutes, 12 seconds to 11 minutes, 24 seconds. We know that he was drunk. We know he was very likely passed out. So she did this to a person who was unconscious, asleep, and couldn't defend themselves, and couldn't move, and couldn't take action to even clean it afterwards, right? This is an intentional act. This isn't something she's doing even to convey the kind of rage to him, because he's not even awake enough to see it. This is something to be done for him to feel later.
Were you concerned that there was white powder on him that maybe would have ate through his skin?
I didn't know it would do that. I thought things like that just kind of sat there, nothing would happen.
I didn't know it would do that. I think things just like that sat there and nothing would happen. That can't be true. We know it's not true. Everything indicates that's not true, but what it does indicate is that she did do it, right? She was throwing it. She knew what she was throwing. Because I didn't think that would happen. That's her saying I did it, but trying to protect herself.
I guess my question to you is, why did you tell us initially you only threw thread? What were you afraid of that was going to come out?
I don't want to get in trouble for something I would never purposely put my doctor.
So this is where the police are starting to talk to her about, why did you lie to us at the beginning, right? Why did you tell us it was just bread? Why didn't I throw anything? And she's still trying to protect herself by saying, I didn't do it purposely, which is the defense that people do when they can't accept the responsibility for their actions, right? I did something because I was angry, upset, and I meant it at the time, but now I have regrets. Regrets are fine, regrets are good. We should have regrets when we do bad things. That doesn't change the fact that there has to be responsibility and accountability for the things you did. And it also tells us that the moment the police showed up, she knew that there was something wrong, right? She already tells in the video that, they told me it was chemical burns at the beginning, so people have called her already, right? They told her. Dad's at the hospital. He's got the chemical burns. They show up. She knows why they're there. And she is immediately defensive.
Did you think that what you did today might have hurt him when we came here? Is that why you weren't telling us everything that happened?
Well, I knew because obviously, like, my brother's yelling at me, like, everyone's yelling at me because they think I'm this one person, and then, like, I didn't actually do that. And I just I don't want to get in trouble for something I never meant to do. I didn't think it would hurt me.
This is one of the parts, I think you can see kind of the frustration of the officers here, because she's still trying to pretend that she had no idea if this was going to be a bad thing, right? But there's no question. There can't be any question. When you watch the video and break it down slow, and you think about what she's saying, you can actually take it a little bit by bit. It is extremely obvious that this is an action she did, that she knew she did. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she threw. And it's absurd to suggest that she thought that this would be just fine. And of course, it wasn't just the police that night. that she admitted what was going on.
So Friday morning, I'm gonna send this in a video because I don't feel like texting, but Friday morning I woke up and I went to go see my dad because I had hair appointments, so I needed him to take me. And he was drunk, and I was like upset because he's like an alcoholic and he wanted to stop and everything. So I threw a bag of bread at him because I was angry. I'm not gonna throw something that's gonna hurt him. And I threw a few other things, but I threw it like at the end of the couch so it like wasn't near him. And I left. And when I left, I said goodbye to him. He said goodbye. And then I needed his like card info for the hotel because I was going to a hotel for my 18th birthday. And then I had Kayla, my friend Kayla, go to my house because she lives down the street to get it from him. And she was like, Megan, your dad's not okay. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, there's like burns on it. And I was like, what? Like I was so confused because I was like, why is he like, what is happening? I was like, my instant thought was he probably like stood up and fell because he's prone to hurting himself when he's drunk. And I'm always the one who has to go and help him off the floor and make sure he's okay. So I was like, call my brother. I didn't know what to do, like, so I just told her to call my brother, and they called an ambulance. And it's like, apparently there were like chemical burns on him, and I'm like, I was so like, I didn't even know what was happening. And then my brother's like yelling at me, saying I didn't do it. When I left, he was perfectly fine. I would never intentionally hurt my dad. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm against violence. That my dad's like my best friend. I'd never hurt him. And my brother wasn't even there. And Lucas, Kobe, and Bella West over here are like, since they're all best friends, they were like talking to the police, and they were like, yeah, Megan did it. She did it. Were you there? No, you weren't there. Either was I. Nobody knows what happened. But they all blamed me because people like you in this world don't know how to shut up. And so they all like, they blamed me. They said it was my fault. I wasn't there. I didn't. The cops came to the hotel I was at, and they were like, so your dad is severely injured. He's in the hospital, and everyone's saying you did it. You mean everyone who wasn't there? Is that because what? And they were saying, like, my mom said that my dad didn't know what happened. He didn't know. Like, so how are y'all gonna arrest me for that shit? So they took me to jail. Even though I'm fucking innocent, they took me to jail. And I was there until yesterday. I got out. And then I have to live with my mom now, which is like no problem. Like I'd rather be here and happy and be able to be the girl that I know I can be and have my future and everything. But my brother and Bella and Lucas all have my cat, so I have to go get that. The whole school fucking knows, and everyone's gonna judge me even though they don't know what fucking happened. I'm like, I have like court dates and everything, but hopefully everything turns out good, but yeah.
So that's what she sent to Blake Shelton about a week after this incident, right? Yet again, she's trying to tell the same kind of things, deflecting, saying she didn't do it intentionally. I hope you notice that not once did she ask about how her dad is. Not once did she express concern for his well-being, the man she says is her very best friend and all that. It's a lot about her needs and what she's worried about and becoming the girl that she thinks she can be. So let's talk about intent and homicides and what Megan intended to do. There are a number of homicide charges in Michigan, okay? First-degree murder requires premeditation and deliberation. It's the intent to kill and only kill, nothing else, right? The classic examples of this are like if you sit in the backseat of someone's car and wait to ambush them or poison them, something like that. That's not an intent you have to find here. Second-degree murder. Intended to kill or intended great bodily harm or knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm knowing that death or great bodily harm would be a likely result of her actions. That's sometimes called depraved heart murder, okay? This is someone whose actions are so reckless that they have to be criminal, and it's just absurd. One of the classic examples of this one is if someone's playing Russian roulette and slips a bullet in the gun, right, with their friends. You don't know who does it. Voluntary homicide. It's the same elements of second degree for intent, but it has to be triggered by some intense event. The classic for this one is when you stumble upon your spouse and they're cheating on you. And you snap and you kill one or two, right? That's voluntary homicide. Your charge is not that. It's none of those. You don't have to find an actual intent to kill ahead of time. You don't have to find that she did this with the desire to kill him. Just that she did it with the intent to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, assault, batter, or kill. I'm not playing video. Actually, I just want it to be, 1 second, Judge, I just want it to be at one mode now. The intent on our charge. Of all those options, right, to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, these are all things that have pretty standard definitions. Any of them can work, you know. Intimidate, this could be done to intimidate. After he wakes up, right, he was behaving in a manner that she didn't like, that was pain, that caused her a lot of anguish. And so now it's you're going to do change. Look what I can do. Look what I will do. Look what I have done. It's time to change. To threaten. Look what will happen if you don't. Right? To injure. That's certainly something that was done here. Or to assault, batter. Right? That's an attack. To do something when you're trying to cause someone harm, and to hurt them, but maybe not kill them. You don't have to find intent to kill. I think you can. I think there's enough evidence to do that. I think when you look at the burn patterns and the injuries, which I'll probably go over later, you might be able to find intent to kill here. But you don't have to. And the thing is, you all don't have to agree on which intent you find. One of you can think it was intent to kill, one of you can think it was to intimidate, one of you can think it was to frighten, because I bet when you wake up and you have burns like that over, it's scary as hell. Certainly Austin said it was scary, and that his dad was scared when they were at the hospital. You don't have to agree on which one.
So, you're in my shoes, right? How old are you?
I just read
You just turned 18. If you were to throw, and to be honest, give me the honest truth, if you were to throw Drano, household acidic cleaners on someone's body, what would you think that would do? I mean, we're both smart individuals. It's probably
it. I didn't think like the powder alone would do that.
well, you said you threw water too, right?
You see all the water and the drain open this?
Okay. So, at this point, I'm going to have you turn around. You are under arrest, okay? All right, so turn around, place your hands behind your back, okay? We'll try not to make it.
She knew what she was doing. And she knew what the intent was. And it was so preposterous that the trooper here, after not even 15 minutes, was already, rubbing his head like, are you serious with this stuff? Can you really be still trying to say that you didn't know that this would happen? Or that something would happen? This gets us to the last element. That the possession, placement, or use or release of the chemical irritant resulted in the death of Conrad Imirowicz. I don't really think there can be a dispute here. I don't really think there is a dispute here, frankly. But let's just go over it again. Dr. Varane, perhaps the expert of all experts in homicides and in forensic pathology. 20,000 some autopsies, right? 31 years. Cause of death, chemical burns with complications. Manner of death, homicide. The 64-year-old white male Conrad Imirowicz died of chemical burns with complications. He sustained these burns when caustic chemical was thrown on him. He survived longer than 5 months of medical treatment for these burns. There were no other physical injuries. The manner of death is homicide. The only other alternative that's been posited in any of the evidence in this case is this idea of the bug bomb, right? Now, everybody up there told you that this couldn't be a bug bomb, and certainly that there would be some injuries to the lungs. There were no injuries to the lungs. First, these are the Hurley medical records, page 45. There is no associated inhalation injury. It's not there. And then when it came to Dr. Virani, there was the scarring on the lungs, which she said could only be a result of repeated infections, which is what happened here. Conrad spent 5 months at the hospital. 5 months in which they were trying to save his life. It was 153 days he was there, and after he went off life support and went home, it took him only 3 days to die. He got 3 days after 5 months of horror. The elements in total. The defendant placed, used, or released a substance. No question. She admits it. The substance the defendant possessed, placed, used, or released was a chemical irritant. This is perhaps the least arguable element of them all. The defendant possessed, placed, used, or released the chemical irritant to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, assault, batter, or kill Conrad Imirowicz. There is no other reason you pour Drano on someone's body unless you are trying to do one of those things. And if you do it on accident, you clean it off right away because you know what it is. And that's what's crazy about this most of all. She put this on him and left. Right? She put this on him and left and had no reason to believe anyone was coming back. The only reason Kayla went back is because she called her and needed the credit card. But there was no reason that this passed out man unconscious was going to have anyone come and help him. So she just left him there like that. She didn't clean it. The only option that this wasn't going to get very bad was if he woke up from his drunken stupor. And this is a girl who's doing this because he's drunk all the time. She knew what this was going to do. She left him to burn. And that the possession, placement, use, or release of the chemical irritant resulted in the death of Conrad Imirowicz. I want you to think about all the evidence in this case and all the burns, and whether or not there's actually any dispute to any of these elements, really, from the defense that was put on. Listen, the burden is mine, okay? I think we've met it, but since they did call witnesses and they did cross-examine and ask questions, I get to talk about what they said and what it implies, and what the defense is. Did anything that they put on, or any questions they asked, or the answers that came with those questions is the evidence for you to consider, not the questions themselves, did anything call into question what happened? No. Nothing actually called into question if Megan was there, if she's the one who did it, what was done, the damage that was caused, the knowledge or intent. Nothing. There's not a factual dispute. And so what happened is over. And now it's did what happened break the law, and there can't be a dispute there either. Ladies and gentlemen, I get another chance to talk to you in a little bit after Mr. Miller goes. And so we'll see what is said, and I'll respond to that, and maybe talk a little bit more if I think it's necessary. But I think we met our burden here. I think this is one of the worst cases I've seen. I think the injuries speak for themselves, and I don't think there can be a question about guilt. She wanted to hurt him because she was angry, upset, and she did so in a truly terrible way, and I think she's guilty. And I think the evidence shows she's guilty, and so I'm going to ask you to give her the consequences that I talked about in the beginning, the consequences of her choice to hurt him, and find her guilty on count one.